All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our 5th edition BCBA task list series. Today we're continuing with H8 database decisions about the need for ongoing services. Our job as analysts should not be forever because what we're trying to accomplish is change in our client and stakeholders' lives to where we aren't as necessary anymore. And data needs to drive those decisions that we make about ongoing services. Now, there are situations where we will terminate services based on other factors, but that's much more of an ethical view. We're going to try to look at it from a more practical view and a more data-driven view. As a reminder, this is the 5th edition. We are going to start our 6th edition video soon. If you're watching this, those may already be out depending on when you're watching these, but we will have the 6th edition series as well. So be sure to subscribe for all of those updates, all of those videos. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our updates and our study materials. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. So when we talk about data-based decision making, it's just like the rest of H, right? Data guides all our decisions. We are very objective people as analysts, and we want to be pragmatic. We want to make decisions that we think will be effective based on the best information we have, but we also need to be empirical. We also need to be data-driven. So when we're trying to decide the need for services, because our services are not intended to last forever, there's going to come a time in every service where it might be time for us to move on. That might be because we've been effective and there's nothing else we can do, or maybe we aren't as effective as we should be and somebody else has to take our role. But that plan should be in place. This is, again, not just something we decide on the spot. We need to have a plan about transition and about terminating services and when that might take place. Some things we're going to ask ourselves as we go through this process. Are there still things we need to address? Whether that's behavior, is it skills? Are these things socially valid? Remember, we need to target things that are necessary to the client and their well-being. There can come a time when we've made a lot of progress and now we're just grasping for straws as far as behavior goes. We have to target important, meaningful things when providing services. Because remember, for every client we're serving, another client is not getting service we could provide. You have to cost benefit analysis as well. So considerations we need to make regarding the need for ongoing services. And remember, this is also an ethical decision, but here we're trying to focus on the actual implementation, right? So number one, are services still benefiting the client and the stakeholder? We can implement treatments and behavior plans and go through the motions and have no impact at all, right? And not be effective at all, but we're still there. Who is that benefiting? You have to ask yourself, am I still benefiting somebody from my services? Are we targeting socially significant behaviors? Are these behaviors meaningful? Do they matter? Or are they just typical things that, since we're there, we might as well work on something? If you ever get to the point where you're just working on things just for the sake of working on something, you need to evaluate the need. 3, can we reasonably accomplish our current goals? Sometimes we have goals and we are not fit or equipped to accomplish those goals. For example, if our client's main issue is speech, well, if you're not a speech therapist, maybe you aren't the best person for those goals. That's something you need to think about and evaluate. Are we still making progress? If it's been a couple months and you've plateaued, it might not be your fault, but maybe you aren't the best person for that job. We need to keep moving forward with our clients. And then 5, are stakeholders upholding their responsibilities to service? This is a huge factor right now. We need parents involved. Parents have to be part of the team. They need to participate in parent training. They need to do things outside of service. If you feel the parents or the stakeholders in general are not doing their jobs, then you have the right to make a decision regarding service. Other things to consider, we never abandon clients. So if you decide you don't need to be there anymore, services are no longer needed, we can't just quit that day. You have to develop a plan that is systematic and appropriate. If you terminate services, you need to figure out, do I need to refer? Are there other things that somebody else needs to address with this client? And then once services are terminated, you need to be mindful of your ongoing relationship with the former client. What do I mean by that? Well, once they're no longer your client, let's say the stakeholder still wants to be your friend. Well, that's not necessarily wrong, right? But we need to be very cautious about getting involved in a friendly way, even with a former client or stakeholder. You never know what might come up again in the future. And if you've taken that relationship to a more personal level, if they need service in the future, you might not be the one to provide it. So be very smart about your ongoing relationships with former clients and stakeholders. Pretty straightforward idea here, right? Data is going to tell us, are we making progress? Can we make progress? Are we even still needed? Is it necessary for us to provide services? We have to make these decisions as tough as they can be. For every person we are providing service to, there's another person who is not getting service. Always keep that in mind. Who is going to benefit the most from our skills and our service?